to search for 3 Pokemon EX and put them right into your hand, and that includes Mega Evolutions. You can grab Mega Rayquaza EX with it as well.
Yes, you can immediately, like if you already have the Spirit Link in hand, you can actually just grab everything straight for an evolution and play it all down in one big sequence, which is what we're about to see here.
Yeah, so we see 2 Rayquaza EX and the Magearna EX, and we do see the Metal Energy in the discard pile. Magearna EX is a card we saw in Shintaro Ito's Mega Audino deck last year. Has some cool effects with the Mystic Heart ability. It'll actually be pretty useful against the Espeon EX of Ryan. It prevents all effects of attacks on all of your Pokemon that have Metal Energy attached to them. So it can block Espeon EX's Psybeam, the confusion part of it, which is a big part of the Espeon deck's strategy early on.
So we see Nicholas able to play down several pieces of his hand. He's able to immediately evolve,
he's going to dump it all
down, and set up for 5 more cards.
He opted not to play the other Rayquaza EX, perhaps waiting for a Skyfield. Gives up the extra card, but maybe thinking, if I draw no supporter, but like a Tapu Lele GX, I want to have the bench space.
So we see he's got all kinds of options. He could probably play down another Rayquaza. I don't know if he has the pieces to evolve yet. I don't know if he has a Mega Turbo yet either. But opting to retreat out, put up the Mega Ray, and will he just hold?
Yeah, he's trying to figure it out. There's always the worry that your opponent could use Field Blower and discard your Float Stone, and then you wouldn't be able to retreat, and it could disrupt your attack on the following turn. We do see the Oranguru on the bench, though. That's a great card for
There goes the Field Blower.
Yeah, that's big for 2 reasons. Discards the tools and puts 2 more item cards in Nick's discard pile, powering up that Trashalanche even further. Already 5 item cards. That's 100 damage for the Trashalanche already.
That's one kind of terrifying thing that you can run into whenever you run these turbo-style decks is, sure, you might be able to deal 200 damage in 1 to 2 turns, but at what cost? How many item cards deep can you run where all of a sudden you've let your opponent deal also 200 plus damage for 1 energy?
Yeah, so Ryan gets the first Trubbish down and already attaches energy to it. He sees the Magearna EX and the Metal Energy and says, Espeon is not even worth getting in this matchup. I'm just going straight for Trubbish so I can get Garbodor. There's plenty of items in my opponent's discard pile already. Trashalanche going to do a lot of damage. Let's go with that route.
And some players have opted to run the Jolteon as well to add that additional lightning-type attacker. Here, Ryan not opting to do that, so the EVs are almost just fodder for the discard pile or punching bags in this matchup.
Yep, and now looks like Nick, he does have Skyla in his discard pile. He could go ahead and play Versus Seeker. That is item number 6 now, so even bigger Trashalanche, but he can play this Skyla. It seems like a weird card in a deck that's all about speed, but it's big for situations like this where your limiting factor is Skyfield. You just don't have enough bench space. So being able to play this Skyla, sure, it takes up your supporter for the turn, but it unlocks your bench so that you can play more things like Shaman EX or even his unknown Farewell Letter. Things that give you more options. Once you have Skyfield in play, this deck becomes a different animal altogether.
And as we've seen, Nicholas had 2 Skyfield prized already, so being able to get one out as soon as possible is a very big option. I wonder, depending on what else is in his hand, he may even opt to just go straight for the Float Stone. I don't know what his situation looks like. There is a weird thing where I'm trying to see. He does run Choice Band. Oh, sorry. Wrong deck list. I was thinking, it's like, wow, with Choice Band, he could actually play it down, but he probably doesn't run it.
No, you need the Spirit Link and the Float Stone. You don't have room for Choice Band in this deck.
Right. The Spirit Link is off. I saw an opening, but it's not there. He needs the Skyfield to open up so that he can take one-hit knockouts.
Yeah, the problem is he can't get a one-hit knockout here unless he has a Skyfield. So if he plays Skyla for Float Stone and retreats and attacks, he doesn't get a knockout, and it's almost like a wasted attack, doing 150 damage to a Tapu Lele GX. You can finish it off later, but it's very disappointing compared to what else you could be doing.
So here we see, just goes for the Float Stone. Ooh, another double colorless down.
The double-double.
Does he have anything else, any way to burn through cards? He does have Lysander. He's already played the Skyla. I think he's just opting for the 150.
Yeah, I think that is perfectly reasonable. And if I'm Ryan here, I might even consider if I draw a double colorless energy, just using energy drive for 120, setting up for a knockout. Right now, the Trash Lanch attack is doing 120, so that math would work pretty well. Or you can just try to force your opponent to take as many single prizes as possible. Throw up the Garboat or use Trash Lanch. You'll get knocked out by the Emerald Break attack, but then you'll be able to follow up with another Garboater and then Trash Lanch for a knockout.
So we see Ultra Ball over on Ryan's side, probably getting a second Garboater down on this turn. So he's going to have plenty of those big attackers. Trash Lanch already hitting for 120, which is extremely good.
Yeah, it's a big number against specifically the Mega Rayquaza deck because it has to play so many Shaman EX on the bench. Being able to hit for 120 means you can play Lysander or Guzma, target down those Shaman EX, which are vulnerable targets, and take easy knockouts as the game goes on.
So here, just opting to take a good chunk, over half of Mega Rayquaza's health, and it's this weird situation where, sure, you're one-shotting Garboaters, but you're only getting one prize for each of them, while your opponent's getting two every time they two-shot you.
Yeah, that being said, it does take a lot to continually refresh a stage 1 and an energy. You can run out of gas, but it looks like Nick is actually favoring going after those easy knockouts while he can. He's going to take 2 prize cards.
Will he get a Sky Field? I think he did.
Yeah, he did. But, I mean, he takes 2 prize cards, but Ryan's going to do the same thing to him. But this is not a great situation for Nick now that, especially Ryan gets down another Trubbish.
N's going to bring his hand size down to 4 as well, which is going to be pretty hurtful. He's going to need a lot to start swinging with an attack again. He's going to need both of the Rayquaza, the Spirit Link, a double colorless energy, a Mega Turbo, probably a Sky Field. Now, all of that can happen at low hand sizes. If you do find the Sky Field, you can start drawing up with Shaman and turning it around. But otherwise, it's a pretty big journey.
Yeah, I mean, Ryan's going to get the knockout here, but how does Nick respond, right? He needs so much on his following turn. He needs Rayquaza EX, the Spirit Link, the Mega, a double colorless energy, a Mega Turbo, all of that just to knock out one Garboater.
Yeah, you only get one prize out of all that work. There's a knockout on the Mega Rayquaza, so Ryan's going to take 2 prize cards. Now, I did see a couple of interesting things, such as a Skyfield and a Dragonite in Nicholas's hands, so he'll be able to work with a couple of resources. There's the Farewell Letter Unknown we were talking about as well. It basically allows you to draw a card. Poor Pokemon almost never attacks.
Yeah, it's great in this deck because it takes up a bench space. It adds to your damage for Emerald Break, and then it gives you insurance against N, right? You can play them down, and then when your opponent plays an N, it puts you down to 1 or 2 cards. You have extra cards essentially sitting on your bench. You can cash them in whenever you need to.
So here we see it's not a play error. Skyfield allowing you up to 8 bench slots. Means that Nicholas needs to go to the back end of the table. Dragonite, with the pull-up ability, allows you to get basic Pokemon back from your discard pile. So he's hoping to just reset this Unknown and draw something big. Does draw Shaman, allowing him to draw a couple more cards. I think he's really looking for that Spirit Link.
Yeah, it looks like it. He has Mega Turbo in hand. He has the Mega Rayquaza in hand. He was digging for that one Rayquaza Spirit Link, but did not find it. And if he doesn't get an attack off here, it looks pretty ugly. Ryan could knock out almost anything on Nick's field. The only thing he couldn't really knock out is the big ones like Dragonite, Rayquaza. Even McGurna has resistance, so you can't get the knockout there. But like Hoopa EX, weak to Psychic, Shaman EX, easy 2 prize cards. This could be a big miss for Nick, and he's going to put more items in the discard pile.
Yeah, versus Seeker. That's number 7. Starting to get dangerous. One more, and you start to put yourself in the situation where even like your Rayquazas can be knocked out if they have a band.
Yep.
And he does grab the Spirit Link with the Skyla. I don't think he had the double colorless energy in hand though for the huge combo. He does have Mega Turbo.
Yeah, but even Mega Turbo puts
another item
in the discard pile. And you can see just why this Trash Lanch attack is so potent and why it has been doing so well at tournaments. Every deck needs item cards to set up, to do something, to execute their strategy. It's just a part of the game. Every deck has 10 plus item cards in it. And you just, over time, you have to play them. And once you do, the damage piles up.
And you can see, just look at the difference in commitment. Garbodor needs 1 psychic energy to start doing Trash Lance. Right now, dealing a base of, oh man, a base of, where we hit 200 now?
Yep.
200 damage. To deal that kind of damage on the Mega Rayquaza side, you need 3 energies, probably a Spirit Link as you're evolving up.
Oh boy.
Skyfield, oh man.
Sorry, not oh boy. Your boy.
Your boy,
Guzma.
Guzma, pulling up the Mega Rayquaza EX, can actually knock it out with this band.
Yep. And at this point, if I am Nick, I am considering moving on to the next game because this is looking ugly.
I don't even know, oh man, throwing up Nagirna. I would not be surprised to see a scoop on this turn,
Oh,
and
yeah.
there it is. Wow. He did finally get the double colorless energy, which would have been something, but regardless, you can just see this is a matchup that can get out of hand very quickly. Mega Rayquaza certainly is good against some of the popular decks. I think it probably has a decent fighting shot against things like Gardevoir, because it's one of the few decks out there that could actually one-shot it. But overall, you definitely struggle against decks that utilize how many item cards you've played.
Definitely, and especially Nick's version, he's playing the full-out like speed version where you're still playing cards like Trainer's Mail. I've seen some versions of this deck where you scale it back a lot. You don't try to go for the turn 1 Emerald Break because you really don't need to anymore. You don't need to get a turn 1 attack. The format is slowed down enough where you can power up a turn 2 Mega Rayquaza and Emerald Break turn 2. That's an acceptable speed of play at this point. But Nick is going full out. I want to get turn 1, everything into play, power up my big dudes, do a lot of damage, and try to overwhelm my opponent. But that is the kind of play that Trash Lance punishes very hard. Trainer's Mail has almost fallen out of competitive play completely because each one of them is 20 damage for the Trash Lance attack, and you just can't afford to give your opponent that. Oh,
Yeah.
big prize cards for Ryan. Garbotoxin and both Field Blowers.
Wow.
That could end up being big.
So once again, not going to have access to Garbotoxin. As you guys saw in the last game, he did not even need it. We'll see how much more explosive Nicholas's start might be this time. He does have a Skyfield right away. It took him a while to actually get that out in the first game.
Yeah, the unknown start, not great. You can only use Farewell Letter when it's on the bench, so it's actually kind of annoying to have to move it to the bench just to cash in the ability. Makes you burn some resources where it's typically a card you just want to throw down on your bench and either let it sit there or draw your card right away. But in this case, he'll have to commit either an energy or a float stone to get it out of the way. And it's also an easy knockout for an Espeon GX.
So we see the Ultra Ball creating the first item in Nicholas's discard pile. Certainly will not be the last, but it has begun sort of this tracker that we're keeping above the GX markers. For each of those die pips, that's going to be an additional 20 damage from Trash Lance when it happens.
This game going to start pretty similarly to the last one. Ultra Ball for Hoopa EX, Scoundrel Ring. Hoopa EX and Shaman EX are the two things that really make this deck work. You just need, it's a big combo deck. You need to draw so many pieces at the right time. Hoopa EX gets you your Pokemon. Shaman, it actually finds you Shaman EX as well, which can draw you additional cards to find like your trainer cards, your energy, things like that. It's actually really cool to see in action how much you can do in a single turn. But they do clog up your bench, and they do give up easy prizes later in the game, especially against Trash Lance, but they are necessary to get this deck moving.
Yeah, it's, as you said, this is just a very risky deck. It's all in. You try and just get as many pieces down as possible. All these energy, there we have already the Mega Evolution, the double colorless energy, another setup. The Farewell Letters haven't started moving yet. Even another Hoopa, all kinds of crazy stuff.
Yeah, I think this game, Nick needs to find a way to not play as many item cards. Slow down if you need to. You don't need to attack immediately. You can have a couple turns where you're not doing anything. The Espeon version of the deck doesn't pressure you super quickly. It annoys you with Psybeam, but it's not like you're under immediate pressure like from Drampa GX where you're getting hit for 150 damage or 180 damage right away. Typically, you can have a few turns, and if you can set up without playing item cards, that really takes away a big layer of that deck.
Yeah, you're almost your biggest opponent because as you play through more cards at once and earlier, you're sort of setting up your opponent's main attacker. Once you get the Magearna down, you don't even need to worry about Espeon nearly as much. So you sort of control the pace of the game.
Yeah, you saw last game, Ryan didn't do much. He got out one Garbodor, and it took all of his prizes. And now Nick chose to go after kind of the easy prize cards for the Tapu Lele GX, and that might have been one of the deciding factors in the game. If he had just dealt with the thing in the active spot, perhaps he could have won that game, but all we saw was one Pokemon using Trashalanche repeatedly, and that was it. Ryan did barely anything. He powered up a single Pokemon and played a single energy, and that's all it took to take all of his prize cards. Now, he got some help from Field Blower and some other things, but you can see that's why his deck is so powerful.
So there we see a Hex Maniac finally ends Nicholas's turn. Might keep Ryan a bit slower at his start. And on top of that, got a second Mega Rayquaza out. This one without the Spirit Link, but it does end your turn when you do it in that way.
Yeah, I think that was smart. I think he had a Spirit Link in his hand, and he just didn't want to play it. He had nothing else to do this turn, so with Mega Rayquaza's Delta Evolution, you can evolve it immediately. It's very similar to that Forest of Giant Plants Stadium card. But another big thing was that Hex Maniac turning off the Energy Evolution for Eevee. We could have seen a Psybeam knockout on Unknown if he could have played the Energy, evolved to Espeon GX, get the knockout, but instead Eevee has to wait a turn to evolve, can't use its ability.
Yeah, that's pretty relevant. And also, each time that Nicholas ends up playing with Spirit Link, that's another potential candidate to be discarded and adding another item with Field Blower.
Yeah, so it looks like this game's going to play out pretty differently than the first. Only one item card in Nick's discard pile after the first turn, whereas it was already at 5 or 6 in the first game. He's almost nearly set up. He's got Double Colorless Energy on the bench. Mega Rayquaza EX. All he needs is one more energy, and then a way to retreat is active. Perhaps like a Guzma or a Float Stone, and he can start using Emerald Break. And there's nothing really on Ryan's side that he can do to respond to it right away. With only one item in the discard, that's 20 damage. That's nowhere near a knockout, not setting up for a knockout either. So Nick doing a much better job this game. Maybe just drew cards in a better order this game, where he is setting up his strategy, his big Pokemon, without giving Ryan a chance to hit him back with that Trashalanche attack.
Yeah, he was able to do a pretty incredible amount of work considering he only played one item card in that entire turn. The double Hoopa Scoundrel Ring definitely contributing to that. He didn't even have to go into the farewell letters either.
Yeah, perfect so far. We'll just have to see if he can move his Unknown out of the way next turn. If he has something like Guzma, that'll be perfect, where he could play Guzma, bring up the Trubbish, and knock it out with an Emerald Break.
So here we see Ryan retreating with Floatstone on his Eevee, throwing up essentially a sacrificial Trubbish. He was able to grab a second one. If he wasn't able to, you can get into weird situations where your opponent could just knock out your lone Trubbish before you can even evolve. So now the ball is in Nicholas's court to start applying pressure. I don't know if he's discarded an energy card yet. He has Mega Turbo, but it's kind of a scary card. When you play it, you're immediately telling your opponent, hey, here's another item card for Trashalanche. We also see Wonder Tag here from Tapu Lele. Curious what supporter we're going to end up finding. Everything's full art, so not used to seeing it. It's Mallow.
Okay. Yeah, that's a card that works very well in conjunction with Unknown and also Shaman EX. So you get to search your deck for 2 cards and put them on top of your deck. And then you use abilities like Unknown's Farewell Letter or Shaman EX's Setup to then draw those cards that you put on top.
This card isn't used a ton, but I think in the decks that do use it, it can be extremely powerful. Very few effects allow you to actually pick whatever you want out of the deck. There's usually some sort of restriction. So when you can combine it with straight draw, it's fantastic.
Yeah, so Nick could do something kind of neat here. He could put his top 2 cards to be Floatstone and an Energy. So he can Farewell Letter the Unknown on the bench, draw the Floatstone, and then attach it to his active one, retreat to Mega Rayquaza EX, then use that Farewell Letter to draw the Energy, and then he can attack.
Yeah, and you could do all of that without even needing to do the Mega Turbo.
Yeah, it will put 1 item in the discard because he'll have to discard the Floatstone when he does the Farewell Letter, but I don't think 2 is a very relevant number of item cards at this point.
So he's been able to stack the top 2 cards of his deck.
Yeah, it looks like he actually had them out of order.
So,
and then
he
double
had
check to make sure. It's like, oh no, that's bad. That's bad.
I think he had the energy first before the float stone.
That's not how that's supposed to work. All right. So he has sequenced this perfectly. Energy off the top.
He attached it right off the top of his deck. How did he know?
Wow. Amazing.
the power of Mallow. And so here we see what this deck normally does. Incredible overkill here, but we have the Emerald Break attack, dealing 30 damage times the amount of total benched Pokemon. So with 6 total, that's 180 damage.
Yeah, and this is, when you're Ryan, I don't really know how you respond here. Pretty much anything you do ends up with you, on a losing end of an exchange, but we'll see.
I think we should have 2 on that Trash Avalanche counter, because
there's 2 item cards.
Farewell Letter pitched a float stone in. That said, dealing 40 damage is not really great right now either.
Yep. Yeah, it looks like Ryan is going to go for kind of like the 1-2 combo where you use Energy Drive for 100 damage and then follow it up with perhaps a Trash Launch for bigger damage. But if Nick doesn't play any item cards, the Trash Launch doesn't really work. He's got enough Pokemon on his bench to already use Emerald Break for 180 damage, get the knockout. Ryan's just in bad shape here, and he might not know that both Field Blowers are prized, but if he did, he might consider just conceding here and moving on to a Game 3 so they have enough time.
Yeah, this is a big thing that we've seen in the history of the Mega Rayquaza's decks. They've been around for a while. Is being able to play a replacement stadium or being able to get rid of the stadium is one of the biggest crippling blows you can deal to the deck. And so if Ryan doesn't have that out at all, this giant bench is going to stick forever. So we see Energy Drive.
Yeah, when it goes uninterrupted, it is extremely powerful, just doing so much damage every turn. You can't really stop it. Ryan did the best thing he could do. He played a Choice Band, which gives him 30 extra damage. That actually sets up an Acid Spray knockout on Garbodor if he can get another Choice Band and another Double Colorless Energy. He can Acid Spray for 100, getting the knockout on the Mega Rayquaza EX, whereas he really didn't have any other way to do it unless he did the first Choice Band followed by the second one.
So on Nicholas's side, we see an Ultra Ball, which I believe should be the 3rd item card in his discard pile, powering up the Trash Avalanche. I'm wondering, he's in a good spot. I know he wants to get more energy down. If he goes in a little too deep, then he commits too many. And looks like the players are able to correct that here with the Float Stone. If he goes too deep and plays too many item cards, it's tough, but he also doesn't want to go a turn without attaching energy either.
Yeah, and he's in that awkward spot that you do run into sometimes against this Trash Avalanche deck where you just get a handful of item cards and your only supporter is like Professor Sycamore, or you have a bunch of Ultra Balls and nothing else you can do. You can try your best to not play item cards, but sometimes you just draw a hand of cards where you're just like, I have to dump 6 of them. What can I do? It's very frustrating, but it does happen quite a bit.
Well, Nicholas is able to get some energy here off of his knockout prizes, but his Mega Rayquaza EX has a lot of damage on it. We'll see how Ryan's able to respond and if he's able to get the double colorless energy.
Yeah, it looks like just a Wonder Tag for that N. He recognizes he needs to do that this turn. And, he can actually just put the double colorless on Tapu Lele and Energy Drive for 100, getting the knockout that way. So that's going to be his plan of action here. He can take down the first Mega Rayquaza EX, but, he's still got a long way to go. Tapu Lele is doing a lot now, but, it's not doing a ton of damage later when there's no energy on the field, so he can't follow up with a lot of pressure. Nick's going to have some time to set up again.
Yeah, he can either just throw up Pokemon that have no energy on them, leaving Ryan with some really weak really weak energy drives.
Yeah.
Or he could just go all in and try and sweep it right now if he feels like he has the pieces. Either way, we do see a knockout over on Ryan's side. The first Mega Rayquaza EX has dropped. That also adds another item because of the Spirit Link that was attached to it. But there is another Mega Rayquaza down as well. I'd be interested to see if Ryan was able to get one of his field blowers. I think he did out of the prize cards.
Another item, trainer's mail, going into the discard pile. Does Nick find anything reasonable?
I don't think
Judging by the look on his face, I don't think so.
You can get that replacement Skyfield.
That was the look of, oh boy, are you kidding me?
Yeah.
I saw a lot of Skyfields.
It's a difficult situation. I think he really wants to attack this turn. I think he played that thinking maybe I can get something that can draw more cards and attack this turn. Otherwise, I think he just had like a single energy and has to play this the slower route, which is okay, but if you decided to go slower, you maybe wouldn't have played that card at all to add the item.
Yeah, and at this point, I mean, if Nick could attack this turn and knock out this Tapu Lele GX without putting a significant number of item cards into his discard pile, I think he would essentially lock up the game. But oh boy.
He's going in on this draw. It's just another basic energy.
That is not what you want to see.
No, you've opened up once again a pretty big trash avalanche, dealing the very crucial 120 damage.
Yep, and this could be the window for Ryan to come back in this game. He took down the first big attacker and played an N. And I would say N is one of the biggest weaknesses for the Mega Rayquaza deck. Sometimes it's better off to even not be aggressive and wait until you have multiple attackers powered up before you charge in there, because you can run into this situation sometimes where you have a big first huge knockout or a couple knockouts, and then you get hit by N, and then you just run out of steam. And then at that point in the game, your opponent has built up a lot of threats. So if you had been able to just continuously attack, even though it was a turn later, you would be in a better position than if you rush, and then go full stop.
Yeah, that turn where Nicholas was not able to attach an energy at all over his entire turn was really crucial. You still need 3 energies to attack when you're using the Mega Rayquaza, and so when one falls and you all of a sudden don't have like double colorless energy plus Mega Turbo or 2 Mega Turbos and a basic energy, you're left with a nothing turn, which is pretty tough to deal with when you have an opponent that's two-shotting you.
Yep, we see the Field Blower getting rid of the Skyfield, so Nick will have to discard Pokemon until he goes down to 5. Looks like he's going to dump a couple Pokemon he doesn't want anymore, like some Shaman EX. And we'll see if Ryan can follow this up. I don't even think he needs to play an N. He knows that Nick has a Skyfield in his hand, but he also knows Nick doesn't have a supporter because he didn't play one. So Ryan recognizing that and just playing the Professor Sycamore, drawing himself some extra cards, not going to give his opponent any help.
Yeah, that's a pretty intelligent play. Finally getting the Garbodor down, opting to retreat, figuring, hey, I shouldn't open myself up to 2 easy prizes if I can help it. Here's the big pressure here. I have the Choice Band plus attack for 150 damage for single energy.
Yeah, and if Nick doesn't draw like a double colorless energy, he can't knock this thing out. Oh, he does find Skyla.
I'm trying to think, can Skyla create a situation to make you draw a double colorless energy?
Well, I think Nick...
Or you could get Mega Turbo and just concede the fact that...
I think Nick is going to make a crucial decision here. Is he fine just grabbing a Mega Turbo and getting the knockout, or is this the point where you say, all right, the items are going to the discard, I need to race. I need to grab Ultra Ball here, get a Shaman EX, draw a bunch of stuff, try to set up multiple attackers, and just try to win before my opponent can get me. Because if he can attack in the right order, he can actually win the game before Ryan could. He could get the 1 prize knockout here, play Lysander, knock out Tapu Lele GX, and get the win in 2 turns if he can power up multiple Mega Rayquaza EX.
Oh,
so
boy.
I think at this point, that's his best option. Just go for it. Hope for the best.
Yeah, at this point, actually opting to grab the Oranguru, so that can allow him to draw some cards. I don't know if there's still a Shaman left in the deck, or he figures I will probably get out to another Shaman off of this Oranguru. It's going to be able to instruct for 3 cards. He has an empty hand.
Oh boy, these are 3 big cards. Does he find a double colorless energy or not? He needs at least that to kind of stay in the game.
Probably the Pieces Mega Ray as well. Sycamore's a big piece, but he's, oh no, he already played the Skyla.
Indeed.
He has another Ultra Ball, but I guess the question is, if he had a Shaman, I feel like he would have grabbed that first anyways, right?
Yeah, I think 2 were discarded when the Skyfield came into play. That or there's one prized.
He
I think
discarded
he's
the
just out.
Dragonite too.
Yeah, and he played a rescue stretcher, I think.
Oh boy, retreating to Oranguru is
No.
that is a really sad conclusion to a very bold move.
And Nick, understanding the situation here, got a smile on his face. He knows I did the best I could. But Guzma coming into play, targeting down the Mega Rayquaza EX. We're going to see a lot of Guzma this weekend. We already have. And targeting down for a 2-prize knockout. And can Nick do anything from here?
Yeah, it's that's really tough. He has options like N that can bring Ryan down to a low hand size, but he has nothing. He needs both Mega Rayquaza down, like one down, Spirit Link, another one, double colorless energy, Mega Turbo, a way to move this Oranguru in the active spot. He needs to draw basically the rest of his entire deck to maybe have a chance at getting one knockout.
Yeah.
And even then, by the time you've done all of that, you've probably opened yourself up to like another Garbotoxin knockout. That said, here we go with Ultra Ball.
Yeah, so I wonder what actually gives him the best odds. Do you Sycamore and just try to get a knockout here, hope your opponent doesn't have the Garbodor plus energy? Well, he already has the energy. Hope he doesn't have the Trash Launch, or do you... I don't even think you can N. I mean, you could... You can N. Hope your opponent doesn't draw Guzma and then gets another turn to draw a Garbodor. It's just ugly. It just... No matter what you do, it's not pretty.
Yeah, everything is bad. Versus Seeker opting to go the Sycamore route. There's Mega Turbo in the double, but I don't even see any out to the Spirit Link or Evolving or anything.
Nope.
Lots of energy. He needed these several turns ago, but right now he has all the energy in the world and no Mega to attach them to.
Looks like Nick will have to play another round here, but Ryan will advance to day 2 with a victory here. And we talked about earlier how he just has not had great luck at the World Championships, but there he is.
Guzma for game.
4-0. He is undefeated and moving on to the second day of competition here at the 2017 Pokemon TCU.